Here we are. We're live, Chuck. We're here
We are.
today.
I can verify that we're both live, yes.
Yes,
And on the YouTube. Isn't that wonderful?
isn't that wonderful? I
Yes.
was looking today and we have 30 videos that we have produced already. And we've been doing this
Oh,
since, I think it's been since March that we launched this.
yeah. Well, yeah,
30
kind of.
videos. That's
Yeah, it's not
that's
bad, is it?
amazing. No, it's not bad at all.
And
Pretty
for all of
excited.
you out there YouTubing, Denise is all the energy behind this. She does all the work. All I do is sit here with a headset on and say clever, witty things occasionally. But Denise does all the work. So just remember, all 30 of those were hours and hours that Denise put into this. So thank you, my co host and partner. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. My pleasure. But also keep in mind that if it weren't for the fact that you have this wealth of knowledge that you're sharing, and I'm just nudging you and prompting you, and I'm a student of the universe whenever I speak to you on these videos. So for me, I'm just soaking all of this knowledge up from you
Well,
because you have a lot of it and you are
you can take
sharing
my
that.
place. Just you take my place when I move on,
Oh,
wherever I move on to.
oh, jeez.
So when they put me out to pasture, which could be in the next several hours, you just jump in and take over because, you know.
Yeah,
Or you could just, you have that picture of me somewhere,
I
don't you?
do. I have it's called
Yeah,
blur. It's called in case
blurry.
Blurry Chuck comes
Yeah,
out. I
you
put
could just
that
put
up
that up.
there. As a matter of
Yeah,
fact, just for the
yeah.
fun of it, I'm
Let's
gonna.
do it.
There it
Yeah.
is. You
So there
see,
he is.
there he is.
So all you YouTubers, this could happen to you. See, I actually have a suit on there too.
You
That's
do.
yeah, that's the old Chuck. It's
Oh, the
summer
good
Chuck
old
here.
days. Three
Yeah,
months ago.
yeah. It was still
Well,
cold here in the mountains.
the joke of that whole thing, my nickname, Blurry Chuck. I really liked that nickname, though. But what would happen all the time is we couldn't figure out why he was coming in so blurry. It was a bandwidth thing.
The
We figured
bandwidth
it
and his
out.
personality. There's something about personalities in YouTube that there's a filter on there, and as soon as your personality starts to show, it blurs you. I think it's in the algorithms, I'm sure.
Uh, so to, Here we are. We're going to talk about getting getting through your first job interview in ISD.
Yeah, that's a
I
big
made it
one.
sound like you're crawling through the muck
Well,
of it all. It feels that way to some people, and that's
if
why
you've
we're
ever
here.
done basic training, this is pretty much. I mean, there's so many things that go into an interview, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to interview because that's silly. I'm not going to tell you how to do resumes or any of the rest of it. But I think there's certain basic things in instructional design that most people are looking for that hire for these positions. And I want to try to take some of the mystery out of this, at least from my perspective, as someone who's hired many hundreds of designers. And each company is different. They'll look for different things. They'll hire differently. They'll have different expectations. They'll ask you the trick question, all the things that go into this. But I think there's some basic things about instructional design that you need to feel comfortable about. And if you do, you can talk your way through an interview. And Denise will have some good points too about things to think about as someone who is being interviewed just in general about authenticity and don't try to swim above your level if you're not there and
Oh gosh, no, yeah,
just little
absolutely.
things like that. But in terms of instructional design, which is the alleged purpose of this channel, we're going to look at the things that I think an entry level instructional designer should be able to know going into a Zoom or an in-person interview. And if you have some working knowledge of these things, I think you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, and we know that the ISD field is a wide, vast field, full of opportunities and just full of different pathways. There are so many different pathways. And so for me as an instructional design novice, just as a student, a graduate student in the program, taking your adult learning class right now, one of the things from a perspective of putting myself out there for my first ISD job, it can be very intimidating for somebody who is new to the field, who doesn't have this ginormous portfolio or maybe even the vocabulary that you feel you would need in an interview.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so trying to prepare for that kind of an opportunity it can be overwhelming for people. So I think before we even start, if you were to speak right to that novice person who is feeling that intimidation about even applying for their first ISD job because, oh gosh, I don't have enough experience, I don't have a portfolio that speaks the volumes that it should, what would you say to that person?
Relax.
Okay. Relax, people.
Relax.
Relax.
Relax. It's all okay. And think about ISD just like you would any other professional field. The thing that's different about ISD is people come to it from so many different directions. Most of us were subject matter experts or teachers or something else. And we decided that we wanted to get involved with this thing called ISD. And what you quickly learn as you get into this is it is so much behind the mirror here. The curtain pulls back and there's the wizard, and the wizard is 10,000 things you didn't even know were going on. And that has a tendency to intimidate people that are first getting into this. But there's some very basic things that if you have a good sense of these basics of instructional design, then you're going to be able to get started. And things you want to think about, you have to know what behavioral objectives are. You have to have a working knowledge of ADDIE, analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. You have to be able to know that instructional design is a process. It's a systems approach. And they're very basic things like that. And the one thing that I ask everybody who interviewed for an intro instructional designer or someone who's going to do an internship, I ask them to write an objective. Just write me one objective on anything. And sometimes this would take a half hour.
Deer in headlights. Oh gosh, he
There
wants
it
me to write
is.
an objective.
And the things that I would look for, do they have audience? Do they have behavior? Do they have condition? Do they have degree? Did they not use, and let me repeat, NOT, not use words like understand, which drives Uncle Chuck delirious. Did not use those words.
Anyone who has ever had a class with Dr. Chuck Hodel knows don't use the word understand in the context of objectives.
Don't use it. And anybody that's done instructional design will immediately pick up on stuff like that. So just know that you want to have actionable verbs. So things that you can observe and measure when you write objectives. And the other important thing to think about this is you need to appreciate the fact that entry level ISD is not as difficult as what you will eventually get into. And many people in graduate school think they don't qualify to even put in an application for the jobs that they see listed because they'll see an undergrad degree in instructional design, which there are very few of anyway. They'll ask for graduate level instruction or a graduate degree or a PhD in instructional design. And let me assure you that a large percentage of those positions will not be filled by somebody with those qualifications. What you have to appreciate is that that's the ideal candidate. And lots of organizations still write these for the ideal candidate. And that's fine. I don't have an opinion on that. But what you need to know is you're not going into a pool with people that have PhDs in ISD for an entry level position. It's just not the way it works. So what you should be able to do is think about this in terms of relative strengths. So like I said, you want to know objectives, you want to know ADDIE, you want to know this is system, you want to know some other things that are just basic information. If you have taken a course with ATD or you've worked at some level in an academic course of instructional design, you have some basics there. And you can appreciate the fact that you have to look at mastery. You have to think about evaluation, whether you use Kirkpatrick's model, whether you use my NOP analysis or any of the things that you might want to do. Just remember that you have to do these things. Instructional design is about this system. So know your populations, know your content, know the things that you want to be able to have them demonstrate at the end of a course. And if you can talk about those things, even in general terms, you're going to be ahead of the game. But what you don't want to do, and I've seen this time after time, especially with subject matter experts for some reason, they come in and try to bluff their way through with all their technical experience. And I can assure you that means nothing in terms of instructional design, except in very vertical positions where they want you to be the subject matter expert and the designer. And those do exist. And if that's the case, that's different. But don't take your past experience in something else and think that it always relates directly to what you'll do in instructional design. This is a vertical content area. This is a vertical set of skills. And you need to be comfortable with that. But just the basics will get you someone's attention in this hiring process.
Yeah, and I think, as it is with any kind of a hiring or interviewing for a job, if you go in there and you prepare in a way that you know they're going to ask you questions about a process. I don't care what kind of a job you're, any kind of higher level job, they're going to want to see or hear examples of ways that you have worked in that type of an environment. So I think it's important as especially like for students of a program or somebody who's has some knowledge of it from studying it, really wants to break into it, is if you don't have that direct experience, if you don't have portfolio items, it's time to build them. Like you
Well,
should be building them.
you have
And
to have a portfolio.
you have to have those in order to get in the door. And if you have those, then you have something to speak about. You have that authenticity that you can show up and be very authentic with how you deliver, how you actually tackled some of the things in that portfolio. So for me, that puts me at ease when if I would be fine going in for an interview. It's for me applying for a job, because when I look at some of the with UMBC, we get listservs. We get jobs that sent to us as students, which is amazing. And when I look at those, I get very intimidated because I don't
Sure.
have any of the I don't have any of
I
those
don't qualify for
qualifications.
most of those jobs. I mean,
Thank you for
they're-
saying that, because that's how
I
that's how you
I mean,
feel.
that's true, because you got to remember that HR writes these things, and God love them, and they're going to write these to cover all the bases that they need to cover, and that's great, right? Let's see, what's Pat saying? So
Yeah,
reviewing
Pat's
job
asking.
postings are just to get you the door correct. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if you think about the way that a lot of these jobs are posted and how you apply for them, I know lots of people that apply for everything, even if they
Hmm.
can't even spell instructional design. They will apply for that job because they need a job. So when you get through these, say you get 500 hits on a job, and you'll find that 1 or 2% of those are actually people that have anything to offer you. And so, okay, that's the game now, and I get it. But this is just to get you in the door. And what I tell everybody is apply for every ISD position that you reasonably could fulfill. And by reasonably fulfill, I mean is in a location that you can get to work at. If it's not a remote job, can you physically go to downtown DC or downtown St. Louis, or can you be in San Bernardino or in Boston or in Idaho or Houston or wherever? Can you physically be there if that's the requirement? And can you basically say that, yes, I can explain to you the basics of instructional design? And one thing I tell everybody is go in with the notion that I know I have a lot to learn. Okay. I have a whole lot to learn about this, but you know what? I want to learn about this. And the people that impressed me were the people that showed a real interest in this career in instructional design. They wanted to learn how to do these things. They wanted to do focus groups, and they wanted to do analysis, and they wanted to be there to look at the 4 levels of evaluation. They wanted to do return on investments, and level 3s where you go out 6 months and see if people retain this information that was taught to them. They want to get into the nitty gritty of it. And the more somebody can impress me with the idea that they're there to learn, I can teach them. Okay. I can teach them all this stuff. And the thing that I would say to people that are thinking about taking a course or getting into a program in instructional design, look at what that course or program actually provides. If it's a sit there and talk about it, I would not waste my money. If it's you're going to create a portfolio with all of these products you're going to produce as part of this program, then sign up and pick out the best program that does those things.
Absolutely. That's key right there. UMBC's program, that's what I love about it. Is it's portfolio based, because that's how like, applied learning, being able to actually hear the theory, learn the theory, very critical to do that, but to be able to actually apply that and create something out of that. In my brain, that's how it works. That's how it connects. And I'm assuming that's probably true of most learners.
Well, I would think so. And the thing that I used to love to do, and I don't do it anymore because I don't teach in class, not because of the pandemic, because we just went to an online program, which I think is much better for students anyway. But I used to take people's final projects in 602, and show them to them 5 years later and watch the look on their face. And they
I'm
say,
sh-
you passed me? Why did you pass me? Because you quickly find out that in a period of time, you learn so much working and doing this work that, the basics are the basics. Anybody that's going to hire you understands that.
yeah.
And, the products you produce as you go through a program will be products that get you to that next staging area for learning so much better about all of this stuff. But I guess the key takeaway is just apply for everything and be ambitious about it. And
Hmm.
don't be afraid to say you don't know. Say, I'm learning. I'm starting out. This is a complex field, and nobody starts out at grade school wanting to be an instructional designer. It just doesn't happen. So we all come at this from all these different angles, and people that have been in the field and understand that will appreciate that instantly. You
Yeah.
always have situations where people hiring know nothing about instructional design too, because it's the HR function doing it. And
Hmm.
there's so many different variations on the theme that I'm not going to say this is going to happen to you every time because I can't say that.
Right.
But I think where there are people in the field that understand the field, they will appreciate your enthusiasm and your basic level of knowledge if that's what you have. But don't be scared away by the PhD and the masters and all the rest of the stuff. Just go in and do it.
Just go in and do it. One thing that came to my mind when you were speaking is you cannot teach somebody how to have passion. So when you're a hiring manager and you see that passion in the person's persona, their eye contact, their enthusiasm, the way they're speaking about it, their eagerness to want to soak up what you're saying, you can't teach that. And that to me, like when I'm hiring, when I'm on hiring committees, I look for that enthusiasm because I can work with that. I can totally work with that. I can't work with somebody who has no enthusiasm. It's really hard to take that kind of person and turn them into an enthusiastic team member. And I would assume most hiring managers, they're looking for somebody who's enthusiastic as a designer.
Well, the thing about instructional design too is it's a lot of work, and
Yeah.
it's technical work.
Hmm.
And there are times when you're going to work late and you're going to work weekends. And I can't tell you how many Thanksgiving weekends and Christmas holidays that I had to work. And
Yeah.
either because I was not in this country, so I was working somewhere else, or,
You
so
were
it
in
becomes,
Egypt, right? Weren't you in
among other,
Egypt
I
at
was
one
there
point?
on and off for 8 years, I think. I don't remember. That was a small project that was only for 3 million people. Um, so, you get into this whole thing and it becomes a way of life in the sense that a lot of occupations do. Okay, you start to identify as an instructional designer. You start to think like a systems analyst because that's what we do in instructional design.
Hmm.
So it's kind of incumbent on somebody that hires, and you've been on committees, and I've hired so many people. I can't even get back to how many committees, and from tenured professors down to people and support staff who I got along with better usually than the tenured faculty because they're just a different enthusiasm level. But that issue aside, my friends, what I found was that I always look for somebody who could take my place. Okay, same level of drive,
It's a good
same
leader.
level.
That's a good leader.
Well, I don't know. I never thought of myself as a leader. I always think of myself as a facilitator. But just this notion of if I can't hire someone with the skills to take my job, then there's something wrong with this system. Each system has inputs and outputs, and I see myself as an output. At some point, I want to bring in really qualified people who can do this better than I can. And I always had that attitude about it. Was I'm not sitting here on the hill on the throne. I'm here to bring people in to push me off the back of the throne and take over someday. And that would just tickle me to death if they would do that. So I look for that in their personalities. I want people that are excited about what they do.
Hmm.
I want authentic people. I want them to tell me when they don't know something. I want them to tell me when they messed up. I want them to tell me if they need help. And I will take somebody like that with a basic threshold of skill and knowledge before I'll take someone who's trying to present themselves as an expert who is really, more air than substance. And,
Right.
that's all hiring stuff and it's kind of outside
Yeah.
the ISD thing. But in terms of ISD, if you can do these basic things, know what
Hmm.
instructional design is about, know what ADDIE is, know what models are, know what 4 levels of learning evaluation or whether you call it Kirkpatrick's or whatever, but
Hmm.
just have that basic threshold knowledge of what the field is all about.
Yeah. We have a question from CJ.
Okay.
How do I get past the second round interview? It's a good
Well, the
question.
advice that I've always given folks in a situation is when you're at the end of the interview for the first one, ask, well, when can I come back and talk about this again? When can we have a follow-up conversation? When do you think I'll be able to know what you're thinking about this application and me? Is there something that I can do to make me a better candidate for this position? And when people would ask me those things, I was always impressed with them. If someone asked me, when will I hear about the next round? Or generally they would ask, okay, what's the process from here? And you'll say, okay, well, this is just the entry interview. We'll go
Hmm.
to the team interview, then we'll go to the management, 3-step, whatever the process is in the organization. And if people were asking me about that, that meant they wanted to get to that next level and they were interested in that. But if they also asked me, what can I do to make this more enticing for you as the person that's going to hire me? What are the things I could do or say, or what would you like to see from me to make me a better candidate? And I think being proactive in that discussion and always follow up with an email or a phone call, not, have you made a decision, Chuck? Yeah, don't call me again. That's my decision.
Yeah.
But if someone called and said, I'm just interested, I'm excited about this job, I really want to work in this organization, I want to work with you. And is there anything you can tell me? What else can I do? That kind of stuff impressed me.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it really actually speaks to the whole mentality of an ISD professional
yeah,
because as an instructional designer, you've got to put that detective hat on, as we always talk about in our videos. And what that means is you're as a candidate and ask him what you can do to be, maybe just a better candidate. That's what you're doing. You're analyzing, you're digging for information, and that's a skill set of an ISD person, I would think.
and the other thing I noticed, one thing I always looked for in terms of candidate was there a fit for the organization besides skills and everything else? Is this someone that could fit in this work group? Is this someone that could fit in this organization? Is this someone who's going to take a weekend job if they have to? Is
Hmm.
this someone who's going to complain if they have to work through lunch? Do I have personality issues that I need to worry about? And if a candidate asks me, and I've had several, I was impressed with this, said, am I a good fit for your organization? Do I have the personality that will blend well with the people that you're thinking about me working with? And, just what is that chemistry like? And
Yeah.
am I giving you a representation of who I am that's authentic that you think that might work with that group?
Yeah,
So there's
absolutely.
things that people in interviews can do, and I'm not going to get into interviews and the
Hmm.
rest of it because it's there's so many variations on the theme and disagreements about how this works. But and remember, all I'm giving you is my experience with this.
Right.
So the hundreds of people that I've interviewed for hundreds of different jobs, this is how I did it, and this is what impressed me, and that's all really I can share. I'm not going to try to be an expert on anything else.
Hmm. Now, CJ had another question. Do you think learning about diffusion theory is important to becoming an instructional designer?
I think that anything that you learn is going to help you, whether it's diffusion or whether you're just looking at basic learning theory or anything like that. But I think the real key to using it as you apply and you work your way into thinking about a position is what's relative to what people are asking of you. And sometimes you can overthink the information that you give someone. If they want to talk about those kind of things, then knock them to the floor, give them all they want. But don't necessarily bring up things that aren't actually related to what they're talking to you about.
Hmm.
And every once in a while, I have someone that would bring up things that I had one interview where somebody told me they had 2 degrees in ISD, which of course was not true. And then, and then they told me that they always worked with adults and they always used Piaget's model for working with adults.
So maybe
I
not lie.
So I said, you realize Piaget worked with children? And there was this long silence.
Oh, that's
That was
awkward.
that was kind of the end of it. So,
Oh, yeah, that's awkward.
if you get into things like diffusion, that's great if it's part of your conversation.
Mhm.
I wouldn't throw it in there as necessarily a chip you want to throw unless it's part of that discussion. But I think any knowledge you have in instructional design and the deeper the better. But just kind of follow the lead on what they're asking you about, because it may be that an entry level position would never even get you to having to worry about that. It might be as simple as just doing analysis and writing objectives and putting together course shells and things. So
Mhm.
you just need to think if it works there, and if it's something they want to talk about, go for it. Show them all about it. Tell them all you know.
Dr. Greg Williams is here. Yay. Hi, Greg. What is the most difficult question an instructional designer will be asked?
I think the most difficult question they'll be asked is show me your work.
Yeah.
If you can't show a portfolio, and all of you out there that are watching with us, Greg has put together incredible work on portfolios in ISD. So look at his work, look at our video that we did with Greg about portfolios. But I think that's the toughest thing. Okay, show me the money. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
show me the money moment. Show me your work. Show me what you're going to do. Show me the products you produce now. Even if they're not perfect, show me that you have a product. Show me that you have produced something. Show me that everything is cool.
Absolutely. Speaking of portfolios, so we spoke with Dr. Miko
Nino.
Nino, sorry, Miko Nino. And one thing that I loved that I took away, a big takeaway from that interview we did, the 3.5 interview with him, was the site Portfolium. I love it.
Hmm.
I actually went on there and I thought, okay, maybe
Yeah.
because all right, so as a new instructional designer, a student, building my portfolio, I have all of these pieces so far from the courses I've taken, and I think, what am I supposed to do with all of this? Just put it in my
Yeah.
Dropbox and just, let it collect dust in the virtual world? Is there a place I can put this? And so he cued me into this because that's where his portfolio is. It's an e-portfolio, and it's a very easy site. It's free, and you just go there and you upload your portfolio there. So anybody who's listening right now who's they're not sure what to do, where to put their e-portfolio, it's a great place to put it. It's free, like I said, and it's so user friendly, and it's a really great place to be able to organize what you've worked on. And it's amazing when you actually do organize it that way. It's amazing what you have come up with. Like I'm actually like, wow, I actually have 5 portfolio items right now, and I'm new. So that's pretty cool. And it's just a great way to be able to catalog what you're doing.
One of the things that I've found to be very useful in any career, and I will just apply it here to instructional design. Everybody can jump on and comment that are watching. I think you should take a copy of everything you do and put it in a box.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, whether it's Dropbox electronically or print it up and put it in a box. Because at some point, you're going to want that. You're either going to want it to show that you're able to do something,
Hmm.
or you're going to want it to think about in terms of, gee, well, this is how I approach this. I can do it maybe kind of like this, only a little bit different.
Yeah.
But I work with a group where they have to go through a 5-year program to get accredited in a certain thing. And one of the things they have to do is put together a portfolio. And the portfolio has to include a pretty in-depth look at all the work that they have performed. So in the first year of this, I have them all go out and get a banker's box. I used to give it to them, but I can't afford it anymore, so I make them buy their own boxes. But they go out
Uh,
and get banker's boxes, and I say, put that where everything you do is going to be copied into this box. And then when we get to year 4 and we start to really seriously look at your portfolio, you're going to bring that box with you, and we're going to go through this. And the thing that I found repeatedly is that people forgot what they put in there the first year, the second year, and the third year. And they had done things that they didn't even remember that were directly applicable to what they were trying to provide for this certification. And I think it's the same in any field. And I have to tell a Chuck story because it's just so embarrassing, but I'm going to tell it
all
anyway.
right, we need a good Chuck story.
So I was doing research on something that I had to do, and I ran the topic, and my name popped up, and I clicked on it, and it was a project I'd done 15 years previous to that, and it was exactly what I needed, and I completely forgot about it. And anybody that knows me know that I've got a pretty good memory, but I didn't even remember this thing. It ended up in the Google of the world, and So I think everybody's capable of forgetting most of what they do.
Yeah.
And you have to document. And the more you do this, the more, if somebody came into an interview and brought a banker's box full of stuff, hey, let's have at it. Let's get a pot of coffee going. Let's go through your stuff. You know me, I'll dig in and we'll
Hmm.
spend whatever time it takes to look at that. But I think more importantly, outside of that contextual look at it, I think just as individuals. So to get to the portfolio that Greg recommends for all of you, and Greg put in the chat, is that info line still available on portfolios? Maybe you can let us know. But Greg's put out some great stuff. For sure, look at the video that we've got. We did a session on this, but he's a great advocate for students in the sense that let's document and show off your work so everybody can see how great you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Greg has another question. And
What's the weaknesses
I'll tell you
question?
what, that whole weakness question, oh, it's such a killer.
You know,
How do
my
you
answer
handle
to
that?
that, my answer to that is always, I just work too hard. I spend too much time working. I can't work enough. That's my weakness.
I neglect everything else in the world
Yeah,
because I
my
just I
family, my
just get
dog.
really tuned in. My poor dogs
Yeah.
hasn't gone on a walk for a month.
No, I would, the way I've always answered this, honestly, is I just work too hard. I get engaged in things and off I go. And some would argue that's a weakness. I'm not going to say that I'm not a good speller, or I mean, I don't. What weakness do you want? I've got hundreds. We could choose from a catalog of Chuck weaknesses,
I can't
and I
say the
think,
word spatula, you know.
yeah, I'll say Dayton, Rhode
Da-
Island, Dayton.
Dayton,
Yeah, you can't. So you can't even go in Ohio now. How do you say Columbus?
Columbus.
Oh, you
I
got
got
that one. It's
well,
just,
it's close to
it's just.
Columbia, which is where my husband's
Okay.
from. So,
How about Toledo?
Toledo.
It's just Dayton, huh?
It's Dayton, and it's because of that. Like how I
Well, your
said
biggest
how
weakness is Rhode Island.
it is Rhode Island slang. Like my
But I
maiden
think that's a
name,
great
I
question.
can't
Yeah.
even pronounce my maiden name correctly. Martin. See, it's got
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Martin.
Yeah.
See the
And
problem?
your father's a friend of mine now, so you better be careful.
Yes, I know. So,
I got his back, so just don't
oh, you
mess with
think I
me.
speak? You think I speak Rhode
Don't.
Island speak?
No, I don't. I won't even be able to conversate
Oh
with
no,
him.
no, no. We've gone
Oh
off
God.
we've gone off on a little tangent here.
Yeah.
CJ has another question. What are two to three
There's good things
things
within our portfolio.
that you
Yeah.
must be in a portfolio?
Okay, I think examples of related work. So if you're instructional design, which we're talking about, obviously, I think you want to have a design plan, some way to show that you can put together an organization, an outline for how you would design courses and programs.
Mhm.
If you have actual courses that you've designed, I would have copies of what are the materials that you have there that you could show that. If you can show that you've worked with subject matter experts and with large teams,
Mhm.
show those kind of materials. And I'm sure Greg will pop in with some other things that ought to be in here. But from my perspective, I think the tangibles are the important thing. Show me that you can design and that you can think about design. If you've done analysis, show me an analysis report. If you've done a
Mhm.
focus group, show me a focus group report. If you've done population, show me a population report. Show me that you can do all the mechanics of instructional design, and maybe they aren't specifically how I'll have you do them, but if you can show me that you conceptually can work your way around these things, the fine points of that are insignificant when it comes to actually producing products. So to me, if I can only produce one thing in a portfolio, it'd be a design plan. Show me
Okay.
how you as a designer are going to be able to master this system of instructional design. Show me how
Mhm.
you're a systems analyst. Show me how you get from A to B to C to out the door and mastering.
Yeah, and well, thankfully for anybody who's taken the UMBC Learning and Performance Technology program, your course is the one you're going to do that. You're gonna write a design plan, possibly a lesson plan, but definitely that's in there, and so that's part of the whole portfolio piece. And so that to me is a prime example of it really makes you think as an instructional designer. It makes you go through every
Every
possible,
aspect of
all
it.
the aspects, everything you really
And
need, the
that's even
basics of
more
every
important to
aspect.
me than some of the higher order things that you might think about instructional design, like getting into learning theory and the rest of it. All that's important.
Hmm.
But when it comes to me paying you a salary to put together a course, I want to see how you put together a course.
Right.
And if you can
Absolutely.
do all of the 8 or 9 things that you would have in a design plan, then you've shown me that you have the basics for what I need, and I can work with you from there.
Hmm. That's really great. So a question I have is, I've put together a couple of modules for my portfolio. And those modules were, truthfully, authenticity here. I did not put together a design plan to create those modules. They were for work, and it was a very simple, quick project to put together, something, my own knowledge base I had, something needed to be taught, and I taught it through a module, through Captivate. And so here's my question is, as a portfolio piece, that module, sure, it can stand on its own, but it would be even more powerful if I created a design plan to go in relationship to relate to that module. Is that what you're saying when you say the examples of relatability, relatable projects?
Well, let's think about this in terms of scaling. If you're going to be going into an organization where you're the only instructional designer, you may not ever do a design plan. You may just put
Mm-hmm.
together courses and you just assembly line for this stuff, and that's fine. Lots of
Mm-hmm.
people do that. Let's scale it up where you're now in a team of 5. Let's say you have a lead designer or a manager, you got 4 other instructional designers. And now you're going to have a plan. You're going to have a plan about how you're going to do all this stuff. And that's going to be some form of a design plan. Well, let's work up now to a group like I worked with 2 weeks ago that's all around the world. There are literally hundreds of instructional designers working on hundreds of projects. And there has to be some glue that holds all these together. So there are different levels of integrity of content. There's different levels of sophistication of mastery in terms of how we evaluate it based on content need. But all of this is driven by this notion of we have to have this blueprint for how we do this. And organizations that don't have that at any level are wasting time and money because every time you have to start something over, every time you spin your wheels, that costs somebody money.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's wise advice. Let's talk a little bit about pro bono work. See, all right, so I'll go back to when I was just out of my undergrad program many, many,
Mm-hmm.
many, 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 many years ago. And I wanted to become a writer, right? So my undergraduate degree was in communications. I did a lot of writing in that program, and I wanted to be a professional writer. Well, when I came out of school, I, half expected to get a job writing, right? And it didn't, of course, work that way. I ended up in financial services for a few years, and I
And that's
wanted
a
to pull the
direct
hair out of
rate.
my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was thinking, well, how can I get into the writing field? I mean, if I truly want this, how am I going to do this? No one's going to hire me because they all want published clips. Well, you have to do things for free. You have to volunteer. And I really believe that that is what got me my writing career because I decided, okay, I know about hairdressing because I was a hairdresser. So I'm going to write some free articles for some international magazines that cater to the beauty industry. They love it because they get free content. And so I wrote really great articles and sent them that way. Then I love animals. So I decided to become the newsletter person, the writer for Animal Advocates of Howard County here in Maryland. And by volunteering my services that way, I got my published clips. And then I was able to get a job like that once I had my published clips. And so I feel like with ISD, again, a lot of people might be sitting here going, all right, I graduated or I'm about to graduate and I really want a job in ISD, but I have absolutely no experience. No one's looking at me. Is that a viable way? What do you think of that in terms of,
Oh,
doing pro
absolutely.
bono work?
You have to. Here's what I tell my 5 kids, and I'll tell you, and I'll tell everybody who cares to listen. Pay forward and give back. And some of the most rewarding things I've done have been pro bono. And this channel is pro bono.
Hmm.
We have not monetized this. We don't have Patreon. We don't solicit contributions. As far as I know, unless you're getting them and not telling me. If you are, you better split it. Uh, so this channel is an example of what I say is to pay forward.
Yeah.
And if one person watches this channel and learns something and it helps their career, then I'm happy. I'm extremely happy. And there are 4 million variations on this theme in instructional design. Some of the things, and I think Greg or anybody that's watching can pop in here. This is about paying forward. This is about finding new avenues of spreading the things that you do across places that you would never even anticipate being. And the other thing that I found is doing work for free and being authentic about it, not being sneaky about it. Well, I'll do this for free, and then I'll get $50 million in that contract from you. If you actually go in and are authentic about it, you'll get in doors that would never even be open to you otherwise. And I can assure you that every local community group needs a course on how to bring people in and get them to volunteer. And it's find a group, find something that sings to you, that resonates with your heart and your soul, and go out and volunteer with them. And you'll be frustrated because anybody that volunteers soon gets frustrated because there's a lot of people there that in their best hearts of hearts are there to help, but not everybody always gets along. And, just all the stuff that goes with any work environment. But it seems to be a little different in the volunteer world,
Yeah,
as we've all
absolutely.
seen.
Hmm.
But if you can get in and say, you know what, let me put together that course on how to do this. And I've seen it done in kayaking and in raising flowers and how to take care of your animals, what to say to a vet on that first puppy visit. There are so many courses out there that have been done by volunteers who could easily be getting $300-400 an hour for doing it.
Yeah.
And they're doing it because it's the right thing to do and they're gaining experience. So tell you what I tell my kids, pay forward and give back. And the more you do it in this field, the more it's appreciated because this is not inexpensive work for people to buy. Most organizations can't afford us, to be honest.
Right.
And the more we can do for them, the more that it just helps everybody.
Wow. Yeah, it's very inspiring. It's really great advice. And you're right. I mean, there are so many organizations out there. We all have a passion point. Everybody has some kind of a
Yeah.
passion point. And I mean, I have many passion points. I have so many organizations that I can think of off the top of my head that I could totally be making, doing coursework for them because I see a need. As a person in the organization, I see a need. Like, gosh, we really need someone to like show us how to do XYZ. So many different opportunities. And you're right, these organizations, they don't have the funding. They don't have that in place, the budget to be able to pay a designer. But you'll get both the satisfaction of giving back, which that always feels good, and on a selfish level, yes, you're helping to build pad your portfolio so that you can. And I say selfish, that's not what I meant. You're doing this for possibly that reason, to be able to have a portfolio, to be able to go get actual work to pay your bills, because we all have bills that we need to pay. And
You have bills?
I have some.
Do you?
I have some. All these like lights that I have shining on me right now to make this production possible.
Yeah.
That all costs
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, I have upload speed issues that I've had to pay for recently.
Yes,
But,
yes.
the other thing, and I'm glad you brought that up because I just thought about it and looking at resumes and talking to people that are interviewing. One thing I always look for is volunteer work.
You look for
Now,
volunteer
maybe
work.
that's
Absolutely.
crazy, but I'd say, okay, what have you done for free? What have you provided to your community?
I think it says a lot about character. I do.
And when they say, well, I haven't had time to do that, or I'm too busy, or I just got out of college, or, I have to have a sandwich. I don't know whatever answers people come up with at this question. But that's one thing I've always looked for. I
I
may not even
Yeah.
discuss it with them, but I look down there and I say, show me something you've done for somebody else for nothing. Show me where
Absolutely.
you put some skin in the game to make somebody else's life better. And maybe that's the humanist in me, and I will continue to be a humanist. I'm not going to apologize for that. But I think it's inherent in all of us to do better for other people too.
I
And
agree.
in our field, there's so many ways to do that. So
Yeah.
many ways.
So many ways. I have a student worker that helps me with video production at work. And the other day we had a conversation. He's volunteering to do this gigantic video production um, and he's going to be interviewing like 20 different people for
Wow.
this historic video to capture the stories of elderly people. And he's so excited, and he's meeting with me to talk about how he can do the lights and the audio and what he should set his camera at. And he's so eager, and he's doing this all as a volunteer. And to
Hmm.
me, like, gosh, if I'm ever in the position, I'd want to hire him. He's just
Exactly.
that right there, that passion, that enthusiasm to do better and to give back and to want to learn as much as he can. Just speaks volumes.
And
It
that's
really
when
does.
I think back about instructional designers, and I always say that they're introverts and we're back channel people. We'd rather be behind the stage, not on the stage. Keep us away from the dais. I'd rather run the dials. Um, I think most designers are that way. Of course, there's exceptions, and that's fine. But and that gets to the other part of this too. And maybe I'm just so in love with this field that I talk this way, but I think designers have really big hearts that they really want to do things for other people. Why else would you be in a field where you're trying to make people better every time you do something? You want to get them a new skill or a new career or a new way of doing things. And that's what we do all day, every day is try to make people's lives better. And we
Yeah.
do it in different ways, but that's what we're about. That's what ISD is about. You don't go to a course to make your life worse. You don't go there to de-learn a skill, you know? I mean, let's think about this for a second.
That's a good point, Chuck. That's a good point.
We're here to make people's lives better and to make them more employable or more skilled or
Yeah.
more able to think through or do through. And that's the kind of people we are. And nothing makes us more happy than when a student and a learner walks out the other end and has that moment. We call it the learning moment when their eyes sparkle and they think, now I get it. Now
They
I
get it.
understand. Now I can do this. The teaching moment, some people call it. And there's nothing more important to me. It's not about the paycheck or anything else. It's about I want to see that twinkle in their eyes when there's something new for them they've learned.
Yeah, that is a magical moment. It really is. It's all about, the interviews we've done so far. All the ISD experts we've interviewed, every single one of them has that
At that moment.
that moment. They just there to share all their information, and you can see they light up when they talk about their different areas of expertise. And it's really, as somebody who's new to the field, it's really, really exciting to see that, because I don't know too many industries where people go to work and get excited about, like, they want to get up out of bed and go do that job. And
Yeah.
I feel like with everybody that I've been exposed to right now through this YouTube channel, that's the feeling I get, is people love what they do. They don't consider it work. They consider it
No.
an
I've
extension of themselves. And
I
that's,
refuse to take money anymore for my work. It's just, completely
yeah, it's
off the
a
clock.
really
But,
exciting.
you know, and it's hard to explain, and I'm sure people will tell you it's the same in other careers too, and I know it is. But
Absolutely.
there's something when this hits you, when it grabs you, and when you really feel part of it and feel comfortable with it, and you see the difference that you make in people's lives. And I'll go back to the examples, and I go to the fringes on this because I've been involved in so much of it. When you look at training paramedics, advanced life support, basic life support, medics, firefighters, teaching first responders, police officers, people in the military, even basic training, getting them through so that they go through this stuff safely and return home at night, we all hope. And, when you're talking about life and death kinds of trainings, and this very second, there's 1,000 of them across this country taking place where people are listening and learning the things that will could potentially impact whether they live or die, or more importantly, sometimes if somebody else does. And you think about all it takes to be a paramedic or a first responder or a physician. I have MDs that are my students, and to hear them talk about the passion they have for their work, and every time they have like success. And the other side of it you hear is about, especially with hospice and palliative care, when I teach in those programs, is how you have to be able to get through the day when you know what you're going to have to face with family and patients. And my friends that are watching this, there's people that right this minute are dealing with things that you don't want to deal with. But we have to train them and teach them how to deal with those things, how to talk to patients, how to talk to families, how to talk about things that no most of us don't feel comfortable talking about, and then multiply that across hundreds of different fields. And that's what we do as instructional designers. And every time I teach a palliative care course and talk to providers and they share their stories with me and we talk about ways that they can better communicate with the people that they work with and clients and families and patients. And to me, I can't find a place where I feel more comfortable, even though it tears at my soul. And I'll sit here sobbing sometimes, but that's what we do.
It's important
And we're happy
work.
to do it.
Yeah, it's important work, and it's work that needs to that matters, that needs to be done.
Yep.
And I always admire people who can put themselves in that position to be able to be of service when it's really needed. When most people are running the other way, they're running towards it. And poof, I get chills when I think about that kind of the kind of work
Well,
that puts people in that position.
I've been honored to be a police officer and been involved in things that I wouldn't even share here. And it changed my perspective on what training really is and how can I best prepare people for the awful things that they sometimes have to face. So, um, you know, this is good stuff. This is important stuff. And it really gets under your skin sometimes. It does with me.
Hmm.
Really gets under my skin.
What do you do? Like, what's the advice you'd give to someone else if they said that?
Sometimes you take a walk and you talk to yourself, or uh, sometimes there are always other people that are in this at the same level.
Yeah.
So you have that group talk or that group support session, which I think is incredibly important in some of these fields. And you develop gallows humor, which you tell jokes that people would find incredibly inappropriate because it's the only way that you can deal with some of the things that you face is to try to find something else in it to get it away from the focus of what it is.
Yeah.
And you look at those hundreds of people down Surfside right now digging through the rubble, and
Hmm.
I know those people. I know what they do. I helped train some of them. I certainly couldn't do their work, but I know what they're doing. And one of the things that I always focused on was the emotional side of that work and being able to go home and take time off and come back and do it again. And all the folks that we worked with after 9/11, we actually put together a substance abuse group because of all the people that got into addiction after 9/11 because of the work they did on site. And talking to those people really um, gets you to the point of, you know, we're talking about interviews and getting into ISD, but this is where ISD becomes something else. This is where it becomes a lifesaver, an emotional saver, a step out of addiction. All the things that maybe you don't hear about, maybe you don't talk about, but this is the real world, folks. And this is what instructional designers do. They make the life and the work of these folks that save all of us and do the dirty work better. And if this is the kind of thing that you like to do, and if you want to make a difference, instructional design is where you can really make a difference.
Hmm. Wow, that's well said. I can't think of a better way to end this live session than with that really that powerful statement. Thank you everyone for being here with us. I hope that you got a lot out of this conversation. I certainly did. I always do from you, Chuck. You always have really great insights and information for everybody listening. I feel like I have more of a game plan, and I hope that other people listening here do too. I want to thank everyone who commented and asked some questions because it's always more fun when it's engaging and when people do
Yeah,
want their
be part of
answers.
this.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
you get
makes it.
boring. You need to spice
We
it
run
up
out of
for
things to say, you know.
you know. We're exchanging texts here. Now what are we going to say?
Greg says, let's see, passion can take you to places you've never thought you'd go. And God,
You
that's
know,
so,
and that's so
yeah,
true, Greg. I mean,
so true.
and passion is so ill defined in most places. And passion to me is putting your heart and your soul into something
Yeah.
to make it your passion. And learning it to me is my passion. I want people to go to work and go home every day
Absolutely.
and be the best that they can be. So if you like to make lives better, be an instructional designer. Go out and change the world. Join us, and Pat and everybody that's doing this work, and Greg who's teaching and running great programs in instructional design. You know,
Yeah.
thank you, Greg. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks everyone. Thanks CJ, Pat, Greg, you guys.
DJ, yep.
Yeah, thanks for being part of this. It was a lot of fun, and we'll catch you on the next live, which will be the first Tuesday of the month. So whatever date that ends up being, the day after Labor Day, I think.
We haven't thought that far ahead yet.
No, we really haven't.
No, that'll be August.
Oh
We're
no,
going on
August.
August.
Like, I already
You
just-
lost the whole month, Denise.
Wait, I just skipped over the entire summer, and
Something I should know?
I don't know what
I'm always
happened.
the last. To all you YouTubers, I'm always the last to know, just so you know.
All right, the first week of August, whatever date that is, we'll be here live, and we'll have a good time.
Yes, we will.
Okay, thanks everyone for tuning in. Hit subscribe if you already haven't. We'd love to have you as a subscriber to be able to send you more information about all these videos we make. Take care.